Russ, let me kind of bring you back into the conversation, because one of the things that I believe that you and Kevin do is talking about executive education and educating the executive. So in your story of talking about how you educate the AI leaders to make sure that they fully understand the grasp and the value of AI, it's definitely a critical item for the data leader, in the organization. But where would you recommend an executive start on this journey of understanding the value? So, where would you point them in a direction?
Well, not to be too biased, I would obviously recommend them towards our book, Become an AI Company in 90 Days, which I think provides the best primer on the foundational terms and frameworks that are involved in artificial intelligence and how to build out opportunities and identify use cases from those. Beyond that, I would say that the universe of resources is limited when you're talking about resources specific for a business audience. There's plenty of, like Kevin's alluded to, technical resources out there. There's Coursera courses. There's plenty of mocks and things like that provide a high level technical overview and then go into very specific detail. But there's not a whole lot out there for business centric audiences. And that's the gap that our book was meant to fill, and things like the comic book are meant to complement. Kevin, what thoughts do you have specifically about resources for executive audiences?
Yeah, I largely agree with Russ. I mean, we're not here to pitch our book because, our book is free, so it's really not much of a pitch, right? We didn't really set out to write a book. We wrote a book because we had to. So if there are other resources out there that your audience knows about, please share them with us. We'd love to have them. Unfortunately, there is still very little. And we run into it all the time where executives are like, how do I get started with this thing? I guess my number one piece of advice is just get started. Like, start doing something, take action, because this is part of a long-term, structural change to our society. And it's not like you're going to learn it in 90 days and it's going to be gone. It's going to be a lifelong learning process, and it's just going to be what work is. So doing anything is a great place to start. Our resources and the things we write about are good. If you have the time and the patience and the aptitude of taking some technical courses online, it's great. Udacity, Coursera, they have some basic machine learning courses or statistics courses that can be a good place for people to start as well.
I love the fact that, just jump in, just get started.
Get going.
That's your first experience, and from there you can grow. When I was doing some additional research, and I was reading the AI in 90 Day book, and you're not all about that, and I get that, but I noticed that you were talking about the organization being transformed into an AI-driven organization. And I'm sure that you're aware that many organizations are struggling to become first data-driven organizations. And so my kind of thought goes, well, okay, so where does AI-driven organization come in? Is that the next phase? And so how do you address that? Because a lot of people have heard, well, I want to become a data-driven organization, but you're out there saying, no, that could be a stepping stone. I'm interested in your views of how you see an organization transformed into an AI-driven organization.
Yeah, should I take this one, Russ?
Yeah, Kevin, please.
I think it's just a choice of language. It's the same trend, really. Whether you're an AI-driven or data-driven, really, I kind of think of them all as the same all the same bucket. The larger trend is we're using data and software to make better decisions that were previously done by people. And so the analogy I like to use is from the sports world, because I think it's the most understandable for many people. If you look at what's happening in, whether you watch Moneyball in baseball or, analytics in the National Football League in America or professional basketball, it used to be that, the grizzly old coach made all the decisions because that person had all the, all of the background and experience and gut instinct and voodoo or whatever they were using to make experiences. We've seen in sports in the last couple of years that analytics has been the trend because the organizations that are not adopting it are losing. And so sports changes very fast. It's highly competitive. So when one team gets a slight advantage, everybody else piles into it. And that's what you're seeing happening with analytics. But analytics, data science, statistical reasoning, data driven, it's all part of the same trend. Whether or not you are using algorithms that take data that allow people to make better decisions, such in the American football context, whether or not you want to go for it on fourth down or not. Or if you're using software that automatically uses machine learning to make those decisions for people, it's all really part of the same trend. The one piece of advice I would give companies is do not wait to begin implementing your AI strategy until you, quote unquote, fix your data. When I started my career 30 years ago, we had data silos and data problems. 30 years later, we still have data silos and data problems. 30 years from now, we're still going to have data silos and data problems. So, if you want a fast route to to failure, it's wait until those are all quote unquote fixed, because you're never going to get there.
It is interesting you say that. It's one of my things I'm thinking, how can we see 50 years down the road and have the same mess of data that we currently have?